Howdy all, I know I'm very late with this, my apologies. I hope to share with you all the research problem that I looked into, done by other authors. So starting with that first part, I looked at race, school integration, and friendship segregation in Minnesota. The problem that this study was looking at was specifically how friendship networks are impacted by school integration, with the tilt of they didn't really make a moral statement about integration, but it was implied that improving cross-race friendship networks would be beneficial. So they collected their data from the National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent Health and focused on 80 schools, or two sets of over 80 schools of different sizes, all high schools, and the friendship networks they're in. They collected data on gross friendship segregation, which basically just described the degree to which race was important, salient in deciding who friends were. They had another measure for friendship segregation based on race, and it was called net friendship segregation. This measure took into account factors outside of race. So if there was a correlation between socioeconomic status and race, the net friendship segregation would take that into account more readily than gross friendship segregation. Finally, their independent variable was racial distribution as determined by heterogeneity. Looking at the function here, basically a heterogeneity score close to 1 is like a very integrated school, and a heterogeneity score close to 0 is a very segregated school. So they did a lot of matrices analysis that they presented their results in data tables, but they did 2 of these diagrams to just help make sense of what they were doing. So they were 2 extremes of social friendship networks in schools. Here's a high school. Different shapes are different grades. White shapes are white students, and shaded shapes are non-white students. And you can see here that the friendship networks are very segregated, not all based on grade level, but very dramatically based on race. Here's another example of the 7th and 8th grade middle school, where you can see that the friendship networks are very much separated by grade, but not much separated by race. They used these as examples to talk about reasons that friendship segregation happens in schools. One of their key findings is shown in this graph that shows that as racial heterogeneity increases from 0, which is very segregated, to 1, which is much more integrated. It could never be exactly 1, but closer to 1 is more integrated. How same race friendship preferences change. And basically what they concluded was that as you get more integrated, specifically minority groups, I suppose minority groups for that school, which could be in a majority non-white school, could be white students, would have more opportunity to build a friendship network of people of the same race. And since homophily affects people in that, like, they would prefer, for whatever reasons, to have friendship networks of people of the same race. And since people are limited in the size of their networks, as the school gets bigger, you're more likely to have people of the same race. I should say people of the same race be listed as one of your 10 friends on the survey that they did. That leads into that conclusion was presented in a way that, like they said at one point, while this may be weird for proponents of integration. Let's break it down a little bit. And they use those two examples from before where like school administrators and leaders can do things to make sure that the school is not friendship segregated. And they kind of talked about a few things that teachers and administrators can do. So they found that interracial mixing within settings capture positive elements of contact theory. So like basically people of different races would have to be as equal in status as possible and interdependent upon each other through team cohesiveness on a sport or drama or play or classroom, and that would promote friendship integration. Moving into a push for the article, it says that their results on that previous graph might seem inconvenient for supporters of school integration. And one of the things that they said was that perhaps not only might having more integrated schools mean that you're more likely to list a friend be of the same race, but it could also very reasonably mean that you're more likely to have cross-race ties also. That would just not be measured in the way that they measured social networks. I'm curious to use the model here to analyze how my school has varying social networks based on race.